like apartheid technically on paper was finished and it was till 1998 for that matter. But do you think it is actually gone, or it is just gone on paper and still people just use the fear of apartheid to do things in South Africa?
And when you look at crime in this country, every year it varies. It's either 70 murders a day, every single day in this country, or it's 80 murders every single day. Violent sexual crime every few minutes. I believe the last time stats were done, there was 150 rapes every single day in South Africa. Reported rapes. Now, we
Exactly.
all know that most rapes in this country are not reported.
So, welcome to Seek and Find with Ishita. And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I mean, it means a lot to me that you joined because I never explored the area of the politics, but I saw your podcast, I saw your bio, and the way I saw your history, how has it evolved in politics, and then how have you evolved your YouTube channel and the content you post. I think that is very difficult to come this way after everything you have gone through, and you are still very persistent on what is right for you. That is hard to find, and that is hard to see nowadays, where we see that everything is changing and everybody just wants to adjust to what others say. So, not changing is very rare these days. Okay, so I want to start with your journey, and then I will talk about South Africa and why you chose the country and how is it now. But I want to start with your journey. You were in politics, right? You were the spokesperson out there with the DA. So I want to ask that why did you start in politics? Why do you choose politics as your career?
Well, I mean, initially when I started, the intention was not to be in politics. I've got a master's degree in industrial psychology. I've got an honors degree in psychology. So my avenue that I would have loved to gone into would have been specifically psychology. And I did work in the industrial psychology field for a couple of years. And it was just, it was one of those jobs that kind of felt that you can grow in it, but it's going to be repetition, the same things over and over. And while I was studying in South Africa, there were a lot of things going on. This was when the Soccer World Cup came to South Africa, and then this is when political parties started getting a little bit more radical, specifically with the formation of the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, with Julius Malema. And the rhetoric from the 1980s, during the height of apartheid, was making its comeback in the late 2000s because of the ANC failing to deliver services and to, provide what they promised the electorate that they would provide. So a lot of the lash out, or the, people being upset, it was aimed at white people in this country because of the ANC using the narrative that it's apartheid's fault, it's white people's fault. And that's also when Julius Malema came out and sang "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer" for the first time since we became a democracy. That happened in 2010. So whilst I was studying and I couldn't get a bursary for my master's degree because of the color of my skin, and I heard songs like that being sung, I started a YouTube channel just to kind of vent and talk about, what is happening in South Africa. And so many expats from all over the world tuned in and watched, and people loved what I had to say with my specific sense of humor and the way that, my sarcasm, if you will. So a lot of people then also said, but why don't you get involved in politics? Why don't you actually, you talk a lot about what's wrong, but why don't you get involved and start looking if you can fix these things? And that's exactly what I did. And that is where my political journey started. I joined the Democratic Alliance in 2012. And then in 2024, after being a councillor, after being a spokesperson for them in the Eastern Cape within council, I then made it to Parliament to be a member of Parliament for them. So that is where that journey started. I entered politics because I was frustrated with what was happening in this country, and usually who the people in charge were blaming for what was wrong in this country. So I wanted to assist with the narrative, to change the narrative, and to challenge the narrative.
Okay. So I would just go back a bit and I would want to know that as a white person, how hard was it for you to enter the politics at first?
Well, it's not really hard. It depends on which political party you join. I mean, if you're going to join the Economic Freedom Fighters, it's going to be very hard as a white person to make it up the ranks with them. And the same with the African National Congress and also Mkhonto weSizwe. But I wouldn't say that it's specifically hard for people to enter politics depending on their race. It obviously depends on which political party you want to form part of. But yeah, I think everybody's got an equal opportunity in this country to join a political party and to start working towards a better country.
And partially the reason came from here that you joined Democratic Alliance.
Yeah, the reason I joined the Democratic Alliance was because at that time when I was studying and I was looking through the policies of the various political parties, the one that stood out to me was the Liberal Party of South Africa, which is the Democratic Alliance. You know, it wasn't communist, it wasn't socialist. It was looking and supporting free market economy. It wasn't judging people based on the color of their skin. So at that time, you know, as a relatively young person that was liberal minded, that made the obvious sense to me to join that party. And yeah, that's what I did in 2012.
I mean, you said you were liberal then. Are you liberal now?
I've always seen myself as a centrist, leaning to the left on some issues and then leaning to the right on others. But yeah, I mean, there's a very famous saying that if you're young and liberal, well, if you're young and not liberal, you don't have a heart. But if you're old and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain. So the older that I've gotten, I've just moved a little bit more towards the right, you know, towards the values that espouses conservatism, which is, you know, faith, family, flag, your freedoms. It's to preserve the culture, to preserve the language. So yeah, I mean, and there's also it's different things that changed. It's me changing and getting older, but it's also the circumstances in this country that drastically changed, and that is what has led me to today, where I would say that I am center right on most issues.
I would just jump on that back again because in Europe also we have so many issues that surround the left and the right parties and being liberal and not being liberal. But right now I want to ask you that after you entered the party, what was the most shocking thing that came to you as a shock that you were not aware of, and this was a reality that would never have come up to you if you were not in politics?
It's a very interesting question. I think because of my exchanges on social media when I had my YouTube channel with regards to, you know, a political standpoint, if you will, or talking about politics, that kind of prepared me for life in politics because of the kind of comments you received. But I
Yeah.
would say what shocked me in a good way was just how efficient the system was within the political party, meaning the chain of command, meaning the effectiveness of running campaigns. It was truly a well oiled machine. And I would say that it was kind of refreshing to see that at the time, because when you looked at other political parties like the ANC and the EFF, there was no coordination or any actual, you know, way of streamlining things and getting it done. So that is definitely one element that shocked me. But also, I would say the thing that kind of concerned me a little bit at the time, but I thought it was maybe just because I'm young and I'm very, you know, I'm a go-getter, was how consistently you were told to, you know, stay in your lane, stay
Yeah.
in this little space, and, you know, don't try and rock the boat, don't try and make a name for yourself, you know, just stick within the party and the system and understand how it works. And to me, you know, going from the freedom of YouTube and speaking your mind, and now suddenly having to be in this system where you have to consider other people and the rules and the constitution of the political party. Yeah, that was a little bit of a shock.
When you joined the party, like when you just signed that I will be working with the party, so at that point of time, is there something that you need to disclose that these are your social media handles or this is your digital presence? So did you actually tell the party that you have a YouTube channel at that point?
So when I joined the party on the membership form, I think there's maybe something of whether you've been arrested before, you know, or if you've got a criminal record. I don't know if they've changed it since then, but I mean, this was 14 years ago. So, but I mean, when I signed up, I was already, you know, I knew a lot of people within the organization and they knew that I had a YouTube channel, but it has come up subsequently, you know, after I joined. So it might not have been on my membership form, but within, I would say within 6 to 8 months, that already came up when I applied for the Young Leadership Program in the party. And then, they had access to my social media, they had access to my YouTube channel, and yeah, what I had to say.
You entered this young leadership program, you actually won, right? And you won with a vast majority. You won with a majority of 94%, right?
So the Young Leadership Program was a program within the organization itself,
Okay.
where they choose like 10 or 11 young people to go through like this year-long training program with the ambition of one day being a leader within the organization. So that was different to the election.
Okay.
This happened because there was a provincial young leaders program in 2012 that I graduated from, and there was a
Okay.
national young leaders program in 2013 that I graduated from.
Okay.
And through both those applications, my social media was shared with all of them. Then in 2016 is when I actually stood to become a counselor for
Okay.
the Democratic Alliance in Nelson Mandela Bay. And yeah, that I believe it was a 93, 94% victory in the
Yeah.
ward that I contested. Yeah.
Okay. And in this all the time duration from 2012 to 2016, you were posting the videos actively?
Yeah, so I started my YouTube channel. I started uploading in 2008. And back then it was like maybe one video a month or every 2 months. I mean, because that was when YouTube was brand new. The internet in South Africa was still like dial up. It was like half a meg connection. So to upload a 1 gig video took like 8, 9 hours, so didn't upload every day. I would say that probably from when I started my YouTube channel to when I joined the Democratic Alliance, I probably had about 30 or 40 videos that was
Okay.
uploaded to the channel. And then from the Young Leadership Program to when I became a counselor, I would say that that probably went up to about 100, 150 videos.
Okay. So now I would like to go to the part where actually they caught those 4 seconds of your video, of some earlier video that they had. And that point of time, you have won the elections and you are in the party at a nice position and you are having all these people around you. So, what was that moment like for you? Did you see it coming at all? Not in the form of a video, they might get back to you some or the other way, but it just came that way, or they just wanted you to not be a part of the party. Was it a pre planned something that was happening, or that was just a sporadic moment for you? Like, how did that happen?
So I think I need to just provide a little bit of context. So the from when I became a counselor the first time in 2016, I remained a counselor for 8 years within the organization. And through those 8 years, there was a lot of discussions about my social media. There was a lot of discussions about my YouTube channel because the fear that the party had at the time was that I was controversial. But yet, whenever I made videos, it would get like 95 or to 99% like to dislike ratio. And, at that time, I believe I had about 120,000 subscribers. So the subscribers definitely helped the DA because it was people that were aligned with what I had to say, and I was aligned with what the party, believed in. So then in 2024, which is 8 years after I became a councillor, I was elected to go to Parliament as a member of Parliament. I was sworn in, and then I think it was the very next day, there was some old video that was taken out of context that the media jumped on, and then they made some noise about, and then I was asked to contact or to comment. And I just said, well, if you go and watch the entire video, you'll get the context. And then that died down because they knew that it was a nothing burger. And then what happened, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, I was sitting at the opening or the swearing in of the president of this country. And I got this random message from a journalist that said, is there a video of you using the K word? And you have to understand the context here. Firstly, I don't know who this person is. Secondly, at that time, so in 2024, I had about 1,000 videos that I've uploaded, and I've had about 2,000 live streams that I've done. So let's say 3,000 videos. So the person, firstly, doesn't tell me who they are, and they just ask me, have I used the K word? And that they would like me to comment on it. And then I asked and I said, well, firstly, who are you? Secondly, what is this in connection with? And then This person said that they're a journalist for the IOL in South Africa, and they are in the possession of a video in which I use it. And I said, well, share the video with me so that I can tell you if it's me or not. And then there was a lot of reluctance. He said, no, you can just give me a comment. And I was like, well, I've made so many videos, perhaps just provide me with the video. And then after a back and forth, he provided the 4-second clip, and I said, this doesn't look like something that I said. Could have been AI, it could have been doctored. I'm in Johannesburg right now. I will go home. I've got a catalog of all the videos that I've made, and then I'll be able to check if that is perhaps something that I said. But then I also, at that time, I said, what is this 4 seconds? Do you have the whole video? And then there was just no response. And I was given this deadline of literally an hour or two to respond. And then I just said, I'm in Johannesburg, I can't respond now. And they just said, well, we're going ahead with the story whether you are commenting on it or not. And I said, okay, well, then I can't verify this video. So then as I got onto the aircraft to fly back, I saw that the story broke. Needless to say, that was the longest flight of my life, because firstly, I didn't know, whether the video was real.
Yeah.
And what eventually happened was I got home, and then when I put my phone was back on, or airplane mode was off, there was literally, when it almost sounds like when you win, a jackpot, it goes ding, 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 ding. I knew it'd be, everybody. So I came home through my content, and what happened was I found a video in which I wore the same colored t-shirt. And then I looked at that and I was like, okay, here's the video. And then as soon as I realized that, okay, I did say that, then I responded to the people in my political party and I said, here is the video, but this video is 6 minutes and I think 47 seconds long, and it provides a completely different context to what this person provided just in those 4 seconds. And what is important here to note specifically is right after that 4 seconds that they shared to me, I actually say in the video that I didn't mean what I just said. I just wanted to provide an example. So they cut that part out of it. And of course, I mean, I worked it out. They used 4% of the video and left out 96% of the video for context.
Okay, so okay, now you were at the swearing in of the president, you were in the parliament, you were a member of the parliament, and there this person calls you, this journalist calls you, and you have a 4-second video. A 4-second video. How can this be enough to just get a member out of the parliament? Or what was the reaction of your party? Did you plan to, like defend yourself, or just let it go, or give a statement like, okay, this was the thing, but the video was 6 minutes long?
Yeah, so I wanted to release a statement immediately with regards to that to provide context. I think also, depending on where people are watching this video from, I think it's important to note that in South Africa, the K word, I'm not going to say it for obvious reasons, but the K word is a very controversial word and has been used multiple times by racists in South Africa, especially during Apartheid. What people need to understand, though, in 2010, when the video was made, because the video was, at the time when they reported on it, was 14 years old. Now the video is 16 years old. So during the 2010s, the media in this country still referred to the full term when they were talking about incidents surrounding it. The reason that's important is because, once again, it provides context as to why the word was used. And the reason I used the word was to show, how would black people feel if white people sang a song that was similar to kill the boer, kill the farmer? Because in South Africa, the term boer is used in a derogatory way, specifically in that song. So that is why I used the derogatory term to ask people, how would you feel if you heard that song being sung, but the words being changed? And then obviously, during that period, that video was fine. It stayed online for 3 years. It had over 100,000 views. There was never a complaint laid against me for the video. But after I went through the Young Leadership Program, I decided that, that is not the type of message that I want to send out, because strangely, at that time, I thought that, this video can in the future one day be used out of context, which is exactly what happened. But to bring it back, just after I provided the context now, in 2024, when that video came out, I wanted to release a statement on it, but my political party then started internal proceedings against me, and therefore then I couldn't comment anymore, because if you publicly comment after the party has said that this is now an internal matter, you're not really well, you can, but it will count against you. So I, for literally for 3 months, I stayed absolutely quiet. I didn't say anything to the media. I didn't post anything on social media. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, it was a really frustrating period, because the party went through their internal processes, and I went to go and speak to the leadership in Cape Town. I met with, there's a federal legal commission, which is the political party's disciplinary board, if you will. And then you have an engagement with them. They ask you questions, and then they give their heads of argument. You give your heads of argument. And then ultimately they come to a decision that they recommend to the leadership of the party, which is known as the federal executive. So I don't know if you want to go a little bit more into, those 3 months, or if you just want me to talk about the outcome and then what happened.
No, I would really like to tell me about those 3 months, because those 3 months would have been like you're sitting literally on the fire. You don't know what's happening next. Am I gonna be here? Do I have to just leave all of this behind? So how was those 3 months for you, and how the situations kept on changing for you? Was there a time when you actually thought that okay, I might not have to leave all this and there is a way out?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually my feeling from the very start. You have to understand that in South Africa, politics is very, very in your face. So it's not really as gentlemanly as what it might be in the UK, or in the United States. In South Africa, politics is brutal. But I thought that, considering that the Democratic Alliance have gone through similar accusations, of being racist, of being only for white people, and I'll never forget, I think it was 3 months before the election, the Democratic Alliance got into big trouble for an advert that it ran, where it burnt a printed piece of paper of the flag, and people lost their minds, because they said, this is treason, you are burning the flag, and that is the biggest show of disrespect in this country. And, there was a lot of outcry with regards to that. But of course, it was fake outcry. It was not people that were really offended. It's just that they didn't like the political party, the Democratic Alliance. So when this happened to me, my thoughts were that my political party at the time would see it for what it was, which was a concerted effort to try and get me out of Parliament, because they know that I'm vocal and I would hold people to account in Parliament. And during that period as well, during those 3 months, I took the media company to the press ombudsman in South Africa to say, do you guys think what happened here, and the way that they reported on it, and leaving out all context, not wanting to share the clip with me, and snipping the video, do you think that that's fair? And during that process, the press ombudsman actually found that media company guilty of breaching the press code on 4 different press code rules. So I thought at that point, during my Federal Legal Commission situation, that the party would look at that and go, okay, well, now it's resolved, and we can see that they acted outside of their scope and they didn't give the full context or the full story. But unfortunately, no, they went ahead with it. And the irony is that I went for an in-person meeting. I didn't actually consult a lawyer. I used myself as my resource, because I went and negotiated in good faith. And in the beginning, the party did the same thing. And then ultimately what happened is, firstly, after the press council finding, they didn't drop it. I was disappointed in that. And then secondly, when the finding came out, there's 3 people that sit on the panel. One of them said that my membership should be terminated, and the other 2 said that I should remain within the party. So that is a 2-to-1 in my favor
Yeah.
with the people that investigated this for 3 months. And then when that recommendation was sent up to the leadership, which is known as the federal executive of the party, they just decided in one day to overrule a 3 month investigation, and then they terminated my membership. And to this day, I don't know what consultation took place because I asked the federal executive of the Democratic Alliance for the minutes of the meeting to
Yeah.
find out, what was discussed at this meeting
Exactly.
that made them overturn a 3 month long investigation in one day. And to this day, I don't have that. And I've taken them to the information regulator to force them to release the minutes of the meeting. But to this day, I still don't know what exactly made them decide to overturn a 3 month investigation to find me guilty and to terminate my membership.
That is so horrible to just not know what didn't go your way because you were in the majority. Everything was in your favor. That is, I mean, I can even not comprehend how would you feel that, okay, what was the reason? Just give me a reason and I'll be okay. There's no closure over here. And what led to my termination? Was it that video? What was it exactly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking at the political situation at the time, because it's also important to note that the Democratic Alliance has never been in government. And the 2024 election in this country, it was the first time that the ANC, which was always the governing party, managed to get below 50%. They actually got I think close to 40% of the vote. So this was
Okay.
the first time in our democratic history that we were going to have a coalition, where no outright party governed. So they were busy negotiating with the ANC for ministerial positions. So I can only speculate that perhaps the ANC offered them more favorable positions if they got rid of me. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not factual because I also don't have the minutes. I can't tell you exactly what the reason was why they kicked me out. But yeah, also subsequently to that, there's been a lot of things that have come out showing that even the FLC, the people that ruled 2-1 in favor that I remain with the party, that they breached their own constitution, and I should never ever have been charged in the first place. And the reason for that is because in the constitution of the Democratic Alliance, it says that if you declare something once to the
Yeah.
party and they don't take action against you, or they do take action against you, but they find that there's nothing that should be done to you, then that matter is considered dealt with. Now, in 2012 and 2013, when I went through the young leadership programs, I shared this information with them. I shared my YouTube channel with them. I shared my most popular videos with them. And that video was one of them. And I have it on email where there's a back and forth discussion between the actual CEO of the Democratic Alliance at the time and the main organizer of the Young Leaders program having that discussion. And then also in 2014, when I stood for, back then, a member of parliament, 10 years before I actually became a member of parliament. And then that was also flagged by the election panel. And then once again, I had a meeting with the provincial leader in the Eastern Cape, and I also had a discussion with the chairperson of Federal Council, which is one of the most senior positions in the party. And then the matter was resolved there. So then fast forward to 2024, their claim against me was the reason they are terminating my membership was because I didn't declare this video to them. I didn't declare it to them when I applied to become a member of parliament. Now, it's important to note this is not the reason that they gave to me at the end. I still don't know the reason for that. I'm just telling you that they started that legal proceeding against me because of the fact that they said that I didn't declare this video. And in my arguments, the 3 months that I had that back and forth with the FLC, I did show them. I said, here is the proof. And in hindsight, that should have been the end of the discussion because it was already dealt with. So they breached their own constitution to get rid of me, which, makes it even worse,
Yeah,
if I can put it that way.
I mean, now that I am actually seeing the picture, it's like you declared the stuff, you gave them everything that needs to be given at the
Mm,
starting, and yet they just went
mm,
all against you. They just went all against you, despite you were the
mm,
member from the party who was in the parliament, who was in the parliament.
mm.
But I want to ask that,
Yes.
like, a 4-second video was enough for you to give your resignation. How does this short video culture is going on in South Africa and globally? There, you think nowadays, do you think our political views are actually shaped by this kind of content? I see a 10-second content, okay, that shouldn't be enough to shape my view about anything at all. Technically, leave anything, anybody's political career or any type of career.
Mm.
So how do you think this culture is going in the way of
Well, I mean,
politics?
yeah, what is even more frustrating over that is the fact that the former leader of the party, Helen Zille, which at that time when all of this was going on was the FedEx chairperson, so she was number two in the party, just underneath the leader. She wrote a book on go woke, go broke,
Okay.
which is quite ironic because if you ask me, why do people focus so much on 5 or 10 second clips to try and
Yeah.
cancel people? Well, it's because of cancel culture, and we know that cancel culture is a woke leftist thing that was introduced across the world. When if people didn't agree with you, they tried to find something that you said or wrote, and then they try and twist it and put it in out of context so that they can get rid of you or fire or get you fired or dismissed. And the irony is leader, the former leader of the party, Helen Zille, and then the FedEx chairperson, Helen Zille at the time, still managed to overlook all of that and not see that for what it was, which is an attempt to get rid of me and to try and cancel me. And then just to throw me under the bus like that. I mean, it was bitterly disappointing, especially from somebody that I looked up to from a very young age as somebody that was a phenomenal leader in South Africa.
Yeah. And I mean, when when incidents like this happen, I really want to question that how the media is accepting this kind of culture over there. It was a journalist who called you, right? It was a journalist who called you and he saw that 4-second video. He's a journalist, for God's sake, himself. How can he just look at a 4-second video when he more than anyone is aware how the videos can be twisted, turned, and can be shown out of context? I mean, I can have a clip of this podcast which is completely out of context and doesn't give any hint about what happened during the conversation. So how is that culture accepting this thing over there?
Mm. Well, they driving this culture. I mean, mainstream media in South Africa is diabolical, if I can put it that way. Mainstream media in this country has doxed people. So in South Africa, there's this massive fear of conservative and right-leaning voices because of apartheid. And
Okay.
they equate conservatism to apartheid when in actual fact it wasn't conservatism that caused apartheid in this country, it was nationalism that caused it. So the media is definitely very, very left leaning. They are anti conservative, they are anti right leaning, and you can just look at that through any lens if you want. I mean, the organizations here like AfriForum that does a lot of good work for South Africans of race is villainized and vilified. And the same thing with, right leaning voices or even alternative media voices like myself. I mean, the way that the media handled that, it wasn't my first run in with the media. I mean, the media despised people that think for themselves and speak out openly. I mean, you can ask, I would say, any rational South African what they think of the media, and they will tell you that they are the mouthpiece of the ANC in this country, and that they will always choose the side of a leftist over that of a right leaning person. The irony, of course, is that the journalist that covered that story and wrote that story had the full video, because in the article they explain how they managed to get the deleted video, because that video was deleted for at least 12 years. And they had the full video, but they chose to snippet it. And then to make matters even worse, That journalist was a former provincial director of the Economic Freedom Fighters, which is Julius Malema's political party.
Oh my.
So I don't think that you'll get a balanced view from that individual. And subsequently, after my dismissal, he went back into politics and he's now a counselor in Cape Town. So yeah.
I mean, you were right. It's on the face, it's brutal, and it's dirty. But now I would like to go back to the days when you entered the politics. So, when you were there, what do you think was the biggest problem of South Africa? And still is the biggest problem of South Africa? Because I think a major reason of your dismissal was also that you will make changes. You will want to make changes. So, what was that thing that you would like to change over there?
So there are two big issues in this country. It's unemployment and it's crime. So just to give you some context, in South Africa, the unemployment rate, the broad definition of it is 45%. So nearly half of this country is unemployed. And when you look at youth unemployment, that shoots up to 60%. So 60% of the youth is unemployed in this country. Now, considering where we have come from as a nation and also how the governing party, the African National Congress, has failed people in this country because of corruption and maladministration and lack of service delivery and maintaining the infrastructure, people get frustrated, people get agitated, and instead of, the ANC trying to do better, they blame apartheid, they blame the past, they blame white people. So it creates this animosity in this country. And when you look at crime in this country, every year it varies. It's either 70 murders a day, every single day in this country, or it's 80 murders every single day. Violent sexual crime every few minutes. I believe the last time stats were done, there was 150 rapes every single day in South Africa. Reported rapes. Now, we
Exactly.
all know that most rapes in this country are not reported. So those two issues were the two big issues that I wanted to tackle. And what I would have loved to have driven was, providing more allocation for the police service in this country, because we've got two big problems that can be solved by one thing, and that is employ more police officers and train more police officers, and crime will go down and employment will improve. So you kill two birds with one stone, because of it's the two biggest issues. If you create more employment, then logically either people will commit less crime because there's a bigger police force, or they are employed and they can focus on a job. Now, the reason that I thought that that was important is because when you look at the amount of police officers in South Africa, there is only 180 police officers to control, if you will, 64 million people. Now, also what you have to realize is 180,000 police officers, how many of them are administrative staff, meaning they aren't actually on duty, on the streets? And then you have to look at shifts. You've got your day shift and your night shift. I did the calculations, and in essence, what it boils down to is there's one police officer for every 1,600 people in this country. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that in a country that has got 70 murders to 80 murders every single day, that one police officer for every 1,600 people is not going to lead to crime going down. In actual fact, it's just going to cause crime to get worse. So that
Yeah.
was what I was trying to, fight from my side. That was the biggest social ill in this country, that I thought that if, I could make a difference there, that would drastically change South Africa.
Oh my God. I mean, that was something so deep that I'm literally processing that 70 to 80 murders a day and 150 rapes in a day. I'm still processing that. Also, what my concern is that when you say the sex-based crimes, are these crimes also race-based?
Because of the population of South Africa, most victims of crime in this country will be black people, because black people make up 80% of the population of this country. But there is definitely one type of crime that per capita is higher than even a police officer being killed, and that is being a farmer. Farm murders in this country is a serious, serious crime. You can look at songs like Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. You can look at the animosity of land ownership in this country. And ultimately, if you had to ask me, do I think that there is a disproportionate amount of crime towards one specific race group, then I would say not necessarily a race group, but definitely towards a specific work group or employment type, and that is being a farmer in
Okay.
South Africa.
So, and how does the justice system in South Africa responds to it? For example, if there is a reported rape case, what is the call of action over there then?
Well, yeah, so there's a lot of complaints with the police service being overwhelmed. So if you call them and you get through to somebody on the other side of the phone, you are considered lucky. Most times when you call the police number, which is 111, it'll either be disconnected or it will automatically just go to a message. So if you get through, you're lucky. But then the average wait time for the police to arrive is at least 1.5 hours. So not very efficient, not at all. And then even people that have gone to report an actual rape, as an example, they would be told to not waste their time opening up a docket. And let me be very clear, there are some really hardworking police officers in this country that go above and beyond and put their lives on the line every single day. Fortunately, there is also a large part of police officers that literally just see it as a paycheck. And, you know, strangely enough, yesterday in South Africa, the president had to put the National Police Commissioner on a precautionary suspension for his alleged involvement in some corrupt activity in this country. So the top three police bosses, which is the National Police Commissioner, the Deputy Police Commissioner, and then the Minister of Police, which is a political appointee, all three of those people have been suspended because of alleged corruption. So at the
Oh.
moment, there are three acting people in those positions. So I think that tells you what state the police service is in South Africa.
And these people were still in the government, and yet somebody who just had a video of mere 4 seconds taken out of context was forced out of the party. What kind of justice system is this?
Well, look, so what I can tell you is that the South African Human Rights Commission in this country, within 12 hours of that article being released, opened a case in court against me with not any other information but just that article that was published. I wasn't phoned, wasn't emailed. They didn't ask to meet with me to get my side of the story. And subsequently, what happened is we settled out of court. I think they realized that, them only seeing 4 seconds of a video, or at least 4% of a video, was never ever going to, assist them. And at that point in time, by the time the South African Human Rights Commission, when the case would have gone ahead, was already after my membership with my former political party was terminated. So to me, I just wanted to, close that chapter of my life and start moving on. So yeah, I mean, it was bitterly disappointed. I'm still disappointed, but it is not affecting me as much because, I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And to be fair, I would rather be kicked out of a party that don't follow their own values and principles when I still have enough time in my life to do something else than stay with that party and then, in 5 or 6 or 7 years, something similar might happen to me and then, I can't start fresh and I have to pretty much struggle then to find different employment. So I see it now as a blessing in disguise because there's no way that I could be able to, form part of an organization like that.
I am so inconvenienced. I'm so sorry. Hello? You able to hear me? Hello?
Welcome back.
Are you able to hear me? So sorry. This is so stupid. I don't know why is it happening today with me. I
Can't hear
don't
you.
have any clue. You can hear me now? Okay.
I think you might be muted.
Doesn't look like that. I'm not muted. No, I am not muted. Am
Still
I?
nothing.
No. I can maybe join again. Just give me. Hi. Are you able to hear me? Hi.
Hi. Yes, I can hear you now. I lost you again.
This has never
The
happened
audio.
earlier. You are
There we
able.
go. I can hear you again now.
Yeah, this is so stupid. This has never happened with me ever. I don't know what's happening with this thing today. I don't know.
Don't worry, it's technology. It happens.
Yeah. I wish we could have a podcast in person. I wish.
Mm.
Yeah. So, yes. So we were talking about the crimes that are there, and we were talking about if the crimes were race based. So you were telling that they are not race based, but they are technically with the farmers mostly, and then we came on to the justice system over there. And then we were
Mm.
talking about this thing that there were three people that were just suspended for being involved in corruption, and then there is a person who had just a 4-second video and was told to leave parliament just for a 4 second without context thing. What kind of a justice system is that in South Africa?
Well, yeah, I mean, it never went to the courts. It was actually an internal process with the Democratic Alliance. The South African Human Rights Commission did open a case against me with the Equality Court within 12 hours of that IOL article going live. And then I think once they realized that they missed 96% of the context, they were willing to sit down privately and settle the matter outside of court, which I believe was the right thing to do. You know, once again, and like I said earlier, it's very easy to judge when you look back at what people did and said, but you also have to understand the Overton window at the time. Now, I'm not going to explain the Overton window here. People can go and Google that, but it's pretty much what is acceptable today might not be acceptable in 10 or 15 years from now. Now, if you use the word to try and explain the K word, if you use the word to explain something in 2010, it was seen differently than what it was seen as in 2024. But unfortunately, I wasn't given that benefit of the doubt either, even though mainstream media and journalists were using and mentioning the full word at the time.
Yeah. And now, I mean, now I would actually like to come to, your statement that if you are old and if you're not conservative, you don't have a brain. But if you are young and if you are liberal, you're not liberal and you don't have a heart. So now that you have basically a right attitude, right? So what kind of attitude does ANC have in Africa right now? Are there race-based policies, or they are sowing the seeds of hatred within the population itself, so that people are not very, like, the blacks are not happy with the whites and the whites are not happy with the blacks?
So the ANC is trying everything in their power to try and keep the people that vote for them under their control. Now, there's two things that they've used over the years to their advantage. The first is that whenever people started looking at other political parties, they would tell people, if you vote for anyone other than us, they're going to bring back apartheid. Now, that was, 1998 and onwards. And that used to work up until, I would say, probably about 10, 15 years ago, because people were then starting to get access to the internet. They could research themselves, they could ask for things, and then Google will tell them the answer if they researched. And then they had to shift, and they started the narrative of social grants. Okay, so the ANC has used two methods to try and keep people loyal to the ANC. In the early years of democracy, they used to tell people that if you vote for a different political party, then they will bring apartheid back. So that scared people in voting for the ANC. Then, after the internet became more prevalent in South Africa and people could research their own things and get to their own conclusions, that argument didn't really work so well. But because the ANC is so incompetent and they can't deliver services and they can't improve the lives of people, a lot of people have become more dependent on social grants in South Africa. There's literally 27 million grant recipients in this country, and there's only 7 million taxpayers in this country. So the ANC has created this society that is dependent on the state, and the argument that they are using now is that if you vote for a different political party, they are going to take your social grants away. So this is the new excuse that they are using. And then, of course, because they are so incompetent and because they are a revolutionary movement that should technically never have governed this country, because we've seen what happens when revolutionary movements become governments. They completely destroy the country. And if you look at the state of South Africa in 2026, that's exactly where we are. Unemployment in this country is higher now than what it was during the peak of apartheid. We've got more race-based laws in this country now than at the peak of apartheid. 142 race-based laws. And if you don't believe me, you can go and check it out on racelawco.za. And it's all there. It's not, misinformation or disinformation. It's the actual legislation of this country. So this is not me trying to, say apartheid wasn't that bad. This is just to show you how terrible this government is, that their statistics are worse than that of the apartheid government.
Like apartheid technically on paper was finished and it was till 90s or 1998 for that matter. But do you think it is actually gone, or it is just gone on paper and still people just use the fear of apartheid to do things in South Africa?
So I think that the ANC's failure to spend the money that was collected through taxes and VAT and all the necessary tools to deliver services, because of corruption and because of them wasting that money, a lot of the inequality that existed because of apartheid still have not been dealt with. So the question that I always ask is, where does the legacy of apartheid end and where does the failure by the ANC government begin? Because when we know where that is, then we can start focusing on the future of this country, because the ANC is very much still looking in the rearview mirror and trying to let everybody look in the rearview mirror of where we came from and how terrible it was, but they're not really looking towards the future. If you look at the race-based laws, if you look at affirmative action, broad-based black economic empowerment, I'm sure you've heard of Starlink not being able to open in this country because the only way that they can do that is if they give 30% of their company away to black people. I mean, is that not the definition of racism right there? So it's a lot of absolute failure by the government and them still blaming colonialism and apartheid. And I think that is why we are still in the state that we are in. I don't think it's apartheid's fault anymore. I think it's completely the ANC government that is to blame, that millions of people in this country still live below the breadline, don't have access to clean drinking water, or any water at all for that matter, and in some places no electricity either.
Then how come South Africa will ever develop economically? What do you see as the future of this country with this condition?
There is no future for this country currently under the leadership of the ANC. The ANC is also moving away from the West, and you can see this by the way that they are responding to Donald Trump and MAGA and the United States. I mean, the United States is South Africa's second biggest trading partner, and they have completely destroyed that relationship now because of their cozying up to BRICS nations like Russia, China, and specifically Iran. And you probably know about the case that they took to the ICJ against Israel. And then just also the association with Hezbollah and Hamas, in which we have ministers that's on record phoning Hamas and phoning Hezbollah and sending out their condolences to them. So it's just absolutely absurd how this has happened. But there's a lot of speculation as to why. And if you look at the flooding of the Chinese car manufacturers in this country, how many new ports there have been developed with a lot of Chinese moving in with portions and parcels of land being allocated for them. And then, of course, Iran, funding a lot of things in this nation. I think it becomes clear why the ANC is cozying up to the BRICS nations, is because if you look at Iran's mainstream media, there's not really a lot. The state runs the media. If you look at Russia and China, the state runs the media there. So there's not any media that can report on corrupt activities that take place or money that is being sent to South Africa. So that, in my humble opinion, is what is going on.
I mean, that is dirty and that is not in the favor of the people of any race and will never be in the favor of people of any race ever, ever.
Mm, mm. Fully agree.
And if today you are called back to politics, would you go back to that world again?
So I took a year after my termination. I took a year away from politics and I continued with my YouTube channel. I continued to give political insight as to what's happening in South Africa. And then I looked at the various different political parties in this country and what they stood for. And a year after my termination, decided to join the Freedom Front Plus, which is a conservative party in South Africa. And I have now been part of that political organization for probably about 8, 9 months now. And a lot of people that are disappointed and don't feel like the Democratic Alliance represents them anymore since they joined the Government of National Unity with the ANC. They have decided to move over to the Freedom Front Plus too. So I see that there is definitely a lot of things happening in the political landscape of this country, and with a municipal election taking place at the end of this year, I think there's a lot of political parties that's going to be in for some big shocks, because 85% of this country is Christian, and Christianity forms a big part of conservatism, or religion as a whole. You have to be conservative to be religious. And with so many people over the years deciding to vote for the Democratic Alliance because at least it's not the ANC, now people actually have a viable alternative where their values and principles can be lived through. And that is what the Freedom Front Plus is. Now, at the moment, the Freedom Front Plus is a 1.5 to 2% party. But I'm sure, as you are aware, coalition politics has been a big thing in the UK and across a lot of democracies. And for a long period of time, South Africa had a one party state. And that has changed drastically. So I think that our democracy has matured to the point where so many people can't just see the ANC anymore for being a reputable political party. And a lot of people are also disappointed with the former official opposition, which was the Democratic Alliance, the DA. So they are looking for an alternative, and the alternative, in my opinion, is the Conservative Party of South Africa, which is called the Freedom Front Plus.
Okay. So you think that the current solution to the problem is conservatism? It should be there.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because South Africa is one of the most diverse countries on earth. We've got 12 official languages. We've got at least 8 to 9 prominent cultures in this country. I would say that it's more diverse than the UK. If you consider Scottish and Irish and French and all the various different cultures. So the big thing here that I believe that conservatism has that no other ideology has is that conservatism protects cultures. It protects languages. It preserves what you have. Whereas with liberalism, it's about the individual. It's about that one person. And with communism, it's about the complete society being equal. And that unfortunately has never worked anywhere else in the world, and it definitely won't work in South Africa. So the reason that I believe conservatism is the future is because it respects every culture, it respects every language, it understands that every single culture, a cultural group brings something unique to the table and therefore should be protected. So that is why I believe for a country like South Africa, conservatism is the logical ideology that makes sense for such a diverse nation, because it prevents a majority to completely annihilate a minority's culture and language. Because if everybody's culture and language is protected and it's respected, I think that it puts South Africa at advantage compared to the rest of the world. Because when you visit South Africa, you don't just visit one country, you visit a country that is filled with so many different cultures and languages. And I think that is what would make us competitive as a tourist destination.
And as we are on the topic, I would really like to ask you then, what do you think in which direction Europe is headed? Technically, according to the news that I followed, Spain legalized 1 million illegal immigrants. Germany has a high immigration, and they are from, apart from Ukraine, they are from the Middle East countries basically. They are from the Islamic nations. So, what do you think that Europe is headed for then?
I think Europe is headed for complete destruction, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I believe that is because the people that are coming into Europe are not coming into Europe to live a European life. They're coming into Europe to continue living the life that they lived under the regimes that they lived there. And you can just see this by Sharia law and what they are implementing. I mean, apparently, waving the Union Jack in the UK is now considered racist. So the problem that I see for the UK is that when you open your borders because you want to help other people, and
Yeah.
eventually within 2 or 3 generations they outnumber you, then you're going to be swallowed whole by that culture. Now, I personally, if somebody wants to live under Sharia law, they can do so. I think that that law is very evil. I think that
Yeah.
it is evil to women. I think it's evil to children. And based on, the fact that women don't have equal rights, the fact that children can be married into forced into marriage from 8 years and 9 months, that tells me that's evil. That doesn't align with my Western Christian values.
Exactly.
And it's, yeah, bitterly disappointing to see that happening in the UK. And then people that are fighting out against that is considered racist because they want to just protect their own culture and heritage. I mean, it's strange how it's always the people that's trying to protect their own culture and heritage that's considered racist, but not the people that are forcing change of those cultures and those languages and heritage.
I mean, that is so true that the problem is not the people coming, but just they are not wanting to integrate. I mean, it's about your will to integrate in the society. This is Europe. Don't change it
Yeah.
to. You came from a country where you were suffering to not suffer to this country. Why are you not accepting the culture? Okay, and I'm okay. I'm
Mm,
all for secularism. I don't disrespect anybody's culture. I have no problem with any culture as such. But you need to accept their culture. You are in their
mm.
country. This is not your country, for God's sake. You can't disrespect their culture itself.
Mm.
And which
Yeah,
five
I think
countries?
that it's the height of arrogance when you do that.
Exactly. I mean, for me, even, all the people in one community are not bad, and that creates a bad impression for the whole community itself when one or two people or 100 people from that community does something. It creates that kind of an
Mm,
impression, and that's the same problem we face in India as well. It's the same
mm,
problem that we have in India because India is such a diverse country, and in that country, Islam is the second biggest religion that we have after Hinduism.
mm,
And
mm.
I am all for it, but you just need to learn to not disrespect women and children. I
Exactly.
mean,
And I mean, I spent quite a number of months in Oman, in
mhm.
Muscat. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. It's pretty much like a 99% Muslim country, friendliest people, treated me with dignity and respect. When I had questions, I mean, I went to go and visit their mosques. When I asked questions, they answered it respectfully. And then to see that and then consolidate that with Sharia law and the radicals, it just doesn't make sense. So the way that I see it is pretty much, they are trying. And I mean, there's many people that have spoken about the fact that this was always the plan. The plan was to send, people to Europe because remember, Iran and many other countries said death to Europe, death to America. And the way that they seem to have planned this is to get people to go there and then just to have as many children as possible and then to make themselves the majority in that country. And I mean, that is what's happening right now.
Right now, what we also see is that Germany. I am in Germany. Germany is having a rise of a rightist attitude, and of course
Mm,
they are trying to. I mean, they are tired of integration. So technically, the party is also having a right attitude as of now. I
mm.
mean, I think totally rightist attitude is also not right, but it's what is needed for the country right now. I think so. So, what do you have
Yeah.
to say
And
about it? Yeah.
and in South Africa, I don't think we'll face this problem because there's such high unemployment, there's so much poverty in this country that the government just can't afford to have more of, people that are in need to depend on the state. So South Africa is kind of protected in that sense. I know that there was two aircrafts that came from Palestine to South Africa, and once that was uncovered, there was a lot of controversy, and a lot of them were told to find a different country. So at least South Africa won't have that problem. But it's unfortunate that, it's happening in first world countries where it's literally destroying their cultures and their heritage.
Yeah, I mean, just feel that when I came to Europe, it was a cultural shock to me when I was seeing this.
Mm,
But with time, I think that it is only one country which I feel is not allowing their borders to open is Poland, which I think is very good thing for them. They
mm,
are conserving what they have. So I would like to ask, which are the five
exactly.
European countries that you would say are destroying their culture and maybe would not even exist in next 100 years?
So it's an interesting question. I mean, definitely, I would say England is, I think, the epicenter of it. I would say also that I know that France is having an issue with that. I mean, we remember how France was the where most terrorist attacks took place many years ago. So England, France, and then I think Germany was affected by it, but like you've said, they have obviously started. The right is starting to arise, and of course,
Yeah.
the right is conservatism once again. It's saying let's look at our values and principles, and let's. If you want to enter our country, you're going to live by our laws, by
Yeah.
our things that we do, and if you're not happy, there's the door. You can go and find another country. So I think those three are the top three. I mean, unless there are some others that you are aware of. But yeah, I think that those are the three top concerns right now,
Yeah.
specifically because of their economies.
I mean, yeah, now the economies are also staggering because of that. Because earlier, what I heard in Germany was that whenever the refugees come, they get approximately 500 euros from the government, and that's why a lot of people were coming. But as I'm seeing the trend now, it's like the government has no money now to support everything that they are taking in. For me, I'm a rightist by that way because I support that this country or this Europeans have a culture and we must not destroy it. We must not do that. I do
Mm,
believe
mm,
it. So that's why.
I agree.
And if I ask about US in that sense, what would you say about that? In the same way, in the same question that because in US they don't have any population of their own.
Yeah, I mean, look, the United States is a bunch of immigrants, but I mean, it's also based on Western Christian values. I mean, that it was people that fled the UK and fled their countries to go and find a new home where they weren't being oppressed and where they could live out their Western Judeo-Christian values. And under, the Democrats, unfortunately, they opened the borders. They allowed so many illegal immigrants to come into that country. And then, of course, Donald Trump came in. And I mean, there was a massive controversy during his first presidency where he was going to build the wall, to keep the Mexicans out. And it's ironic if you think about it now. I think most European nations look at that and go, "That's actually not a bad idea," you know. So I think the United States is all right because they had that Joe Biden scare where they realized that, wow, okay, millions, I believe it was 12 million immigrants that they've counted, not even the undocumented ones. So I think that they've managed to curb that problem now, especially with Donald Trump's second term. And I think that the Democrats has been so disconnected with the electorate that there could potentially be like a two-term presidency with JD Vance, where they
Yeah.
will ensure that they strengthen the borders and that they keep the illegal immigrants out. Strangely enough, the only refugees that are currently accepted in the United States is the Afrikaners from South Africa.
Wow. I mean, the only reason I like US now that they don't have this problem of immigrants. I would rather say illegal immigration
Mm,
because that's very high in Europe as of now that I have heard. But yeah.
mm.
And to like if I ask you today that one thing you would have done differently looking back at your journey, what would be that?
Very interesting question. I mean, look, the obvious is that I would not have joined the Democratic Alliance if I knew that this is what was going to happen. But I would also not have made as many friends as what I've had. I would not have been able to see, the true state of this country. So I think the only thing that I probably would have changed, considering what happened to me, is I would have perhaps approached the whole process of that video and everything differently. I would have, lawyered up. I would have given the parties internal legal commission a hard time. I wouldn't have just, given them the benefit of the doubt, because I think they abused my kindness in that sense, that they came with a hidden agenda. And look, I mean, at that point in time, I could not have known that, because I didn't think that the party was so far gone internally. And they have proven my case, over the last 2 years. They now have ministers that are implementing policies that during the election they promised their electorate that they were going to fight against. So I feel vindicated almost, in a sense, because every single day the DA is continuing to implement their policies. They are just showing that, it wasn't me. I wasn't the problem. The problem has always been the party from 2024 onwards. So, I mean, I wouldn't really change anything, perhaps just would have lawyered up better.
Okay. And just one last question that I have out of my curiosity. That if you say that today, if somebody is asking you which is the country you should be in, and you have to give them three choices, which would be the three countries that you think that people are safe and they have their own opinion? They can say, they can have freedom of speech.
I would say the United States, number one. I would say it's actually interesting, because for a very long time I thought Australia, but that has kind of changed. But to an extent, still Australia. So not too bad. And then number three, just because I would actually like to go there, would be Monaco. Other than that, the UK, I mean, you can't even post controversial stuff on social media without the police coming to arrest you. I mean, what has happened to freedom of speech in the United Kingdom and also in Canada? It is absolutely absurd.
Oh my God. I mean, for UK, I have heard a lot of that stuff. UK was one point of time the country that I wanted to be in post my studies. I thought that I would be in UK, but the thing that I'm hearing now, it just scares the shit out of me, and then I don't want to be there. I have heard things that have literally scared me, like the things done by the Muslim men, and also in the podcast, Elliot pointed out that there was some grooming scandal that happened in UK. I mean, UK is the country where you have Oxford, Cambridge, and all of these educational institutions. I don't know what is happening to the world, and I don't know. So yeah, so UK is out of question for me right now. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
but
woke leftism, that's the answer. If you want to know what caused it, it's woke leftism.
yeah. I mean, right now, I was never a rightist. Before I came to Germany, I was never a rightist, because in India, I always felt that I'm a secular person and I'm accepting of all religions, which I still am. I am respecting of all religions. Accepting and respecting is very different. That you come into the culture and you destroy it, and I still won't say a word. So if protecting your culture is
Exactly.
right, then everybody should be the rightist, like you said in the starting. Then everybody should be a rightist, technically.
Exactly, because things have also changed. Radical Islam is something that has been with us for a while. But if you think about the Obama years, I don't know how old you are, but if you remember the Obama years, it was almost a cool thing to be a leftist. It was cool to be open to, what do they call it? It was globalization. That was the term that they used. It's where, people from India can go and live in the United States and it'll be fine. Everybody will accept you. And
Yeah.
unfortunately then the leftism went too far, because it was, I mean, you should know, like, look at what's happening in Iran at the moment, right? And how many leftists are defending Iran. Iran killed 40,000 of their own citizens for peacefully protesting. They have these no king rallies in the United States because they want to overthrow Donald Trump, because they see him as a king, and then they wave Iranian flags. But Iranian women don't have equal rights, which then, as a woke leftist, how can you support dictators? How can you support people that kill innocent women and children? How can you support children that are forced into marriage from 8 years and 9 months? You can't. And that is why woke leftism has gone to the point where they want to bend over backwards to accommodate people that want to kill them for their beliefs. And they don't realize it, and they don't see it. And they defend these monsters. They defend these terrorists. And it is completely absurd.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the brains of these people work. Honestly, I can't really comprehend how can you accept something like that at a humane level? If you are okay at this, then how can you accept this? It's beyond my comprehension. But
Same
so
here.
this brings me end of the podcast, and I'm genuinely very enlightened right now because I have so many other questions that are growing in my mind, that what is happening around the world and what we actually see. We see the rosy picture. We as a civilian will never see what's happening inside, and we just bear the consequences basically.